Islam, Shalom, Hola, Aloha, Assalamu Alaikum, Osio, Bonjour. This is your brother Zach Bay, Indigenous American Moor, coming to you live in full effect. Thank you for joining me. Like, share, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell down below so you can be notified whenever I'm dropping new content, and leave a comment, interact with me. Thank you. I really do appreciate your viewership. Let's jump into another one. Today I want to speak a little bit on current events. Once again, strange stuff going on. If you've been checking out some of the news feeds, also some of the influential people online who normally speak about global news or national news, you might have seen that there is a conference or something going on involving the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the UN, the United Nations, as regards to the medical sovereignty of different nations. So my understanding is, since the pandemic happened, there has been a united effort by globalists in order to control the population of multiple nations who are in connection with the World Health Organization, to potentially prevent, as they say, prevent a global health crisis or a epidemic or a pandemic, things of that nature. So it's supposed to be a united and organized effort globally for the health and wellness of society and the global society as a whole. But when President Donald Trump was in office, he withdrew the United States from the HOA, the WHO, and also retracted some of our force from the UN, as far as I understand it. I saw earlier or yesterday that there was a meeting in the UN, and I believe when a Israeli leader rose to speak and give a speech, a lot of nations walked out on that speech and did not listen, and there was a call to order. But I would say like at least half of the room got up and left. That's very important. That's a show of a united front, a united effort to stand against this takeover of medical sovereignty. I think it's very, very important. So the governments of the world would be under the guise of medical ordinances that would control and regulate how the society moves forward, whether or not there's a lockdown, and whether or not there's mass inoculations, whether or not there will be people removed from their homes and isolated in FEMA camps or internment camps, something like what actually happened in Australia. It was also what also happened in Australia was children were taken from their school system, were taken from their schools without their parents' permission or consent, and were actually inoculated and vaccinated during the whole pandemic scenario. I believe that was a sort of like a soft test for them to roll out their new technologies and their new plans and agenda in order to herd and coerce the masses and see what lines of resistance might potentially foil their plans or delay their plans. So I believe that what happened a few years ago was a soft test to see whether or not or who would stand up and who would roll over. A majority of people, I would say about 80% of nations and people rolled over, and about 20% probably stood up and stood firm when it comes to people as an individual and as heads of states and nations. There weren't too many people who actually rejected any of the proposals from the W.H.O. So, as far as I know, that the final decision on this vote will be passed on November 5th of 2024. That's as far as I know. The Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration re-enrolled the United States into the WHO during his presidential term. So when Trump removed us a few years ago, Biden pretty much got us back into it. Once he got into office during his term. So I think that's really, really important. I don't know all the details about this. As far as I know, it's bad. It's not anything that's really going to be helpful for the world, for the citizens. It won't be helpful for sovereignty, because once you give up a right and it becomes a privilege, then it can be levied against you. It can be held and dangled in front of your face like a carrot, and you'll have to perform in order to get said benefit or privilege, which was originally a right back. So it's a very slippery slope. Once you start to give way, it's just gonna snowball, and it's just gonna avalanche into something that you can no longer manage or control. And before you know it, you have lost all of your freedoms, and you are essentially a slave, not just mentally but physically. So it's really, really important that people pay attention to what's going on now. Try to prepare your families and everything, and stay aware. Stay aware of exactly what's going on, and be prepared to take action when it's time to take action. Necessarily, whether it's moving your family to a safer place, whether or not it's voting with your time and energy, or whether or not it's supporting these organizations with your dollar, these corporations with your dollar. So that's one aspect of what's going on in today's day and age that's rather concerning. Another thing is the migrant crisis. A lot of people are talking about this migrant crisis as far as people being bussed in from the border and things of that nature. I was wondering whether or not migrants would be traveling all the way through the United States up until Canada, and I have seen source information that is the case, that some migrants are traveling all the way through the United States, all the way up to the Canadian border. New information that I'm just becoming aware of, that migrants are being bussed into Philadelphia. It's over here on the East Coast, not too far from the Washington, D.C. area where I am. So it's a little concerning, especially the fact that I keep hearing when the news does mention things about the migrants or different news sources. It seems like they're talking about Haitian migrants, which is very, very weird and very peculiar, because as far as I know, the Haitian migrants are the least number of migrants that are being let and allowed into the country for asylum. Last I knew, Haitian migrants were actually being turned around in Florida from the Coast Guard. They were being turned around at the border from Border Patrol, but migrants from other parts of the world, migrants from Central, South America, migrants from across the seas over in Asia, migrants from the so-called Middle East, and those war-torn areas are being allowed political asylum as refugees, but migrants from Haiti are being turned around. But every time I hear about people moving into complexes, or people on the street, or crime being raised, or people eating pets or something like that, for some reason they always say that it's the migrants that are doing it are the Haitian migrants, and I feel that's far, far, far from the truth. They want to show so-called black and brown faces instead of showing the faces of the people who they want to be passed as so-called white when they get that status on a piece of paper into this nation, into this country, and giving them political asylum and giving them funds and all types of aid as migrants. That video of a lady who was selling her food truck, and a migrant came and got funding in order to buy her food truck. That was very, very concerning. So the fact that somebody said, and I won't forget it, somebody said that this government is literally giving the reparations for so-called black and brown people, for the so-called African Americans. They're giving our reparations to the migrants in our faces, and we're not doing anything about it. That hit home. That definitely hit the mark, because it doesn't seem like that's too far from the truth. Actually, it seems like it's spot on to me. The fact that this government has said that they can't do X, Y, Z for us individually, and they will not, and they refuse to do anything for so-called black or African American people individually, but yet they can pass laws, bills, do all of these funding. They can gather all of this funding for people who have not been here for generations, who have not had roots here, who haven't bled, who haven't sweat, who haven't put in any type of equity into our country, who are simply getting taxpayer benefits, loans, clothing, food, housing, all kinds of stipends and all kinds of benefits, and they're getting a express pass to citizenship, and then that express pass to citizenship will in turn be used to bolster a certain side's electoral power. All right, so they pretty much want to move these people and give them a fast track to citizenship, and then use them to bolster their votes when it's time to vote. All right, so be very, very aware of what's going on. Don't be confused, and don't be distracted by who and what they say exactly is going on. Look at what's going on. Pay attention to who's getting what. Pay attention to where the money is coming from and where the money is going. It's very, very important. The money isn't being put into our pockets. It isn't being put into your pocket. It isn't being put into the American taxpayers' pockets. It's being drained from your pockets and it's being added elsewhere. All right, so it's very, very important to pay attention and to look out for that. Another thing that's concerning is I spoke on the seaports on the east coast of the United States and the Gulf Coast are planning a strike on the 1st of October. That's in a day or two. And along with that strike of the seaports is a planned strike or a more spontaneous strike of the truckers. So the seaports and the truckers who actually move the freight from the ports and actually deliver them throughout the country, they're planning to go on a strike as well. So I think it's very, very important to look out and pay attention to what's going on in this country right now. There could be food insecurities because every day that the ports go on a strike, it can potentially set us inland back up to 7 days to a week. If the truckers go on a strike, there'll be less stock in grocery stores. There'll be less freight going out. There'll be supply and demand will definitely kick in. There'll be less supply, so the demand will be a lot higher. You know how a lot of people panic and start buying water, toilet paper, canned goods, and things of that nature. Just make sure you have what you need for your family. At least a few days of food and water, just in case you can't have access or you can't find it in the stores. It's always good to have like a little reserve, just in case you have to move or you can't go out or, weather gets bad or anything of that nature. So I think it's very important to look out for that and to be aware of that. So the seaports and the truckers, the migrants, the World Health Organization, trying to take medical sovereignty. It's a lot of stuff happening in this country and, in the world as a whole in general. Inflation is the last thing I wanted to speak on. The devaluing of the U.S. dollar due to other currencies being bolstered and being backed by natural resources. So times will only get harder. The U.S. dollar here in America isn't going to be going up in value anytime soon. Gold has been moved on to pretty much has been moved up as like one of the front runners as currency. So gold bullion is going to be very, very important. There's a bank card that actually does transactions through the value of gold. So that's important. I might actually do some like quick spot ads on that. Once I check it out and do a little bit more research about it, I might actually give them like a free advertising, and hopefully I'll get some sponsorships or something. But definitely save, work your plan, have a budget. Don't buy anything frivolously. Be careful on what you're investing in. $1 in today's time will probably be worth $20 in a few years. So definitely, figure out a way that you become financially independent, that you don't have to depend on like a brick and mortar building to go to every single day. Focus on building a skill, learning some type of information or learning some type of skill and applying it so you can actually work and make money anywhere without actually going into like a brick and mortar building and place of business to actually trade your time for money. Because if money becomes more scarce or it becomes less accepted, we can use a bartering system, a trading system, and we can trade tasks or like skills, labor, and or goods for goods, so that's very important. I want to end this video right here. Thank you for joining me. I would love to hear from you down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to hear me speak about more. If there's any products that you'd like me to check out and review, let me know. Once again, this is your brother, Zach Bay. Peace.